Welcome to my channel, I'm Lead. You can catch me on Twitch almost every day and now have fun with the video. Welcome YouTube to my wishlist guide. This is a review over the wishlist guide that I made a couple of weeks ago. I think it's still fairly accurate. A bit amount of changes have been made or have come out ever since, which changed it up a bit, but mostly it is still pretty accurate, I'd say. I'll cover everything right now, so don't worry. Just stay on the video and you'll notice every change that I would recommend making to that one. First of all, Rowan for Lightbearers is still the GOAT, and Lightbearers is still the weakest factions, besides taking into, of the main 4 factions, and not taking into account, Dimension Celestial type of gen, obviously. Since those might run into issues while not being a complete faction, but having really good standalone heroes. Anyways, let's start off with Lightbearers. So for Lightbearers, Rowan is the one that is making Lightbearers actually a faction, basically. He's like a super insane support in every part of the game and the go-to hero that you want to have. His plus 30 furniture allows for energy distribution, and also before we get into it too much, the benchmarks I put on here are really inconsistent, and usually it's just what you are looking for once you get them, but even then it's like really inconsistent, and I don't agree with all of them anymore. Neither did I at the time, but I wanted to fill in something that was decent enough and won't hurt people, and I overdid on 3 out of 9 furniture. Some of the SI ones aren't really needed, and I'd recommend you checking out Linker's newest SI guide for signature items and Artie's furniture guide on Reddit for the furniture changes, if you want to have those in specific. Those are just to give you a broad idea of what could be acceptable for those, I guess. Okay. After Rowan is done, which has to be the go-to, I don't see another way for efficiency sake. If you don't give a shit about efficiency and just want to go whatever, then, well, you can get an idea of that list, but that list also depends on what you went in other factions. Since Isolt, for example, that I rated quite lowly in the Graveborn list, would be higher rated if your wilders would change a lot, for example, and Isolt could move up if you build Hendrik really early on and stuff like that. And I'll cover all of that once we get to each section. And I can't incorporate everyone's box into that one. That is just beginning the game and starting off and then having an order, basically. It's not supposed to be, I have built those 4 units, and since I haven't built X unit that is ranked 2nd or something, I now have to build the Z unit or stuff like that. It's for beginners at the start of the game mainly, to give them an idea. And it also depends on context, what you pulled, what you can actually end up building, and it's not always as simple. That is just a simplified way to look at it. That helps give players an idea, but doesn't always have to be the case for each specific box. I hope that's understandable. Okay, anyways, let's get into it. Rain, really good buff support, works really well with Diamond early on. Great support, one of the better Lightbearers there are. You can also build Rosa at that point, but it doesn't really matter too much which of the 2 supports you go for. After you've done those, or after you've done one of them, you should look to pick up a Lightbearer carry. I mean, I guess Rosa Rowan can work for Lightbearer Tower for a while, but eventually you will want to pick up the go-to Lightbearer carry. I know they released a new one that's called Walker, but honestly he seems super dog shit, and I think Gwen is still the superior one. Even though she's dog shit as well, but I mean, Lightbearers are just kind of fucked until they get a really good carry. That's Gwen, the go-to Lightbearer carry, unfortunately. I mean, later on there are other ways to go about it where you might not even end up using Gwen, but honestly, who gives a shit about Lightbearer Tower? That's at least my opinion. Estrella synergizes well with Gwen, and Rosa synergizes with Gwen as well, which can work in campaign, but nowadays there are so many better comps that you are not really using that one for campaign anymore. The only purpose that Gwen has is being like a sub carry, mostly used for CC against static backlines. And maybe we can find an example. If we would use for Einskamp, for example, and run Arthur, and we would have triple static backline, having Gwen here to CC chain those two enemies would be helpful, and could also proc Joker to use his all-out attack. Wherever it is, all-out attack, there we go. So that would be a use of her. And then as a driller, knocking back enemies at the start to knock them into the Gwen arrow. That's basically the way to go off of. And then as driller also has uses in Twisted Realm against the Dark Mauler boss fight. So those are the two. Yeah. I mean, there's not much else to say about Lightbearers. Hendrik is another Lightbearer that can be decent for Isolt, and he synergizes somewhat really well with Isolt, but at high deficits he just gets overdone and doesn't really stay alive long enough. And Isolt at high deficits to pull off consistently the further the game evolves seems really scuffed as well, and yeah, seems to move less and less out of the meta slowly. I also wanted to incorporate elite copies that you should look to get. The Fox one is like something I mentioned since it can be niche, but most of people end up skipping him. I would also skip him most likely, and I don't really put him into Crystal or ever consider using him since there are other options that basically accomplish the same thing, and Tassi. And yeah, I mean, maybe Fox is underrated, but also just slightly, I'd guess. Like, he's a niche hero that can have some usage, but yeah, you don't really have to get him. And Cecilia and Estrilda for Twisted Realm, AE and stuff like that. So yeah, you want to get an early copy of Estrilda, you want to get an early copy of Cecilia, you can skip the Fox copy, and then you put Estrilda back onto the wishlist, and that's how I'd go about it. That's basically my Lightbearer coverage. The most important one is getting Rowan, then getting the supports, at one point getting the carries, and then getting the tank supports for Twisted Realm and somewhat Gwen / Hendrik for Isolt. Hendrik would be higher if Isolt would be higher for Gravebones. Okay, let's go on to Maulers. Kren is your new go-to carry, and up until the point where you have a fully maxed Entrander that ends up being a pseudo Isolt that can work in Mauler Tower as well. Has great synergy in the comp that I just made a video on. I would recommend go check it out, or check out the Reddit guide that I made earlier. After you've done Kren, which is a really nice damage CC PvA unit that helps stunlock enemies. The only issue he has seems to be surviving, and his furniture and SI help stay alive / CC enemies. His furniture isn't like that fucking important, and his SI helps CC, but yeah, even at low investments he can work. The higher the investments, the more consistent he ends up being, and you eventually want him maxed. Chicken. Chicken's main usage is 5-ball, having Iron's Vortex, and Chicken to group them up. I might be able to show you a good example. Yeah, that's basically Chicken Iron. As you can see, Chicken groups them and then Iron pulls, and you end up pulling all 5 heroes. You end up using that one for Lucretia cheeses. This time around Lucretia didn't go off. But yeah, you group them up for Lucretia. You can group them up for Master Foreign to cheese the enemies. You can group them up for Chain CC. You would end up utilizing a Queen, for example. Yeah, there are a lot of different comps that utilize the core of Iron Skriaf, and it's really fucking insane. If you don't build Iron, then Skriaf isn't as important, but since I'd recommend you building Iron relatively early on for Wilders, I also recommend you doing Chicken. Titus is mainly fit into that comp that I mentioned earlier or a second ago, having synergy, CCing them. Yeah, for comps specifically, if you want like more information on that one, you can check out Artie's Formation Guide, even though it's somewhat outdated. Like the idea behind most comps is still correct, and yeah, I'd recommend you checking that one out. Do you know one of Iron's... Wait, what? Xepi? Come on. Except being weird again in chat. Okay, let's ignore that. Yeah, Titus is relatively nice for Mauler Tower and works well in the iron composition, but isn't really a completely must-have unit, just nice to have. Brutus. Brutus can work at just having one copy, basically, which I would recommend getting one really early on and putting him into Crystal to be a frontline without any investment needed. And then you want to have his last grasp ability extended with plus 20 and 3.9 to up to 3 seconds additionally, which can be meaningful. Sometimes it isn't, sometimes it is, it depends. And he's a great barricade user. So yeah, you should get him. Not a lot of investment or gear needed, and yeah, pretty cheap overall. What is his name? Namiso? Yeah, I think it's Namiso. Namiso's base kit is basically the one to go to. His SI is plus 15, and yeah, he's relatively nice. Mauler supported, can work well with irons, and also has PvE, or yeah, some PvE usage. And mortars can fit a similar shoe, or even those two together for irons. And yeah, he's not too bad, he's not super insane, he's just something to have. Mortars overall are one of the worst factions, unfortunately. They just overall have a lot of mediocre heroes that have some niche uses, but not a whole lot of insane heroes, I'd guess. Or I'd say. I mean, Chicken has his one purpose. Kren can be really insane. He is a somewhat decent tank, but aside of those, they're mostly mediocre or relatively good at best. And then we have something like Wilders and Graveborn, where there's so many fucking insane heroes that it's hard to keep up for Maulers, at least in PvE. Yeah, Scrag, a decent tank that works somewhat well with Kren or Karen, and yeah, he knocks them into the backline, can be used as a barricade user in some comps, has an initial CC, 9 out of 9 enables invade cores, but invade usually isn't like one of the most prevalent strategies in PvE, unfortunately, since it struggles with staying alive, and yeah. KFC think Maulers are the best factions. True. Oh, I also have someone in Casuals that had a real big issue with me calling Mauler's the second worst faction. He's like a Mauler fanboy. He built all Maulers, and yeah. That didn't go too well. I kind of triggered him. I'm sorry for that. Obviously, you can go whatever you want to, and I don't want to like unrecommend the factions if you're into one specific factions and it's mainly about you having fun. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about efficiency for that one. So yeah. Enchandra, pseudo Izod. That's all I have to say about Enchandra. Santrana against Godwin. It's Godwin, yeah. It's Godwin Xepi. I didn't want to name him specifically, but yeah, now you did so whatever. Can't be changed. I don't know, let's check out Maulers. Maybe we want to mention something else. I think that should be like the overall order. Safi used to be relatively high, but she's not needed as a damage carry anymore. She's mainly used for the disruption field, all uses that she has in 5 pull versions or normal pull versions, and yeah, that's all you really need. And Dress is relatively nice for Bristol Expedition, but yeah, since that one is mainly covering PvE, it doesn't really matter. We will cover Warwick at the elite copies. He's a Twisted Realm unit. I mean, Enchandra is Twisted Realm nowadays as well. In Noke, he's not too bad, but just not as important as Greg. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of decent niche heroes that, yeah, are niche and not really mandatory or wanted, needed. I mentioned the most important ones here. After that, it gets really junky or discussable what you would want to go for, and even some of those later choices can be swapped a bit in order depending on how much resources you have and how your box looks like. Titus, for example, I could see moving down a bit. Scrag, I could see moving up. And Chandra, I could see moving up. But yeah, it all changes with meta changing. Yep, those are the ones that I mentioned, the elite copies. Elite copy for Twisted Realm, elite copy for the Shield, and then the rest for Abyssal Expedition. Okay, let's move on to one of my favorite factions, Wilders. Rako. my new favorite unit, basically. Fucking insane ramping up damage CC carry for wilders that I included into formation guide I posted earlier or made a video about earlier that I called Pettingsu. Really nice hero, I love him. And yeah, he takes over Isol's spot I mentioned here, which is kind of incorrect. He didn't take over Isol's spot. He just ends up using a lot of heroes that Isol used to take, and there are only so many comps you need, 5 comps, and yeah, you use Isol less and less, and Isol loses his spot in the meta, with also Isol having a harder time ramping up the lower the deficits go, and Raku having an easier time doing so. So Isol overall, I mean, he still sees uses. I would still recommend going for that one, but he just has to be way later on with all the insane Graveborn units that we got currently. So yeah, I hope you can understand why I did that at the time. I wouldn't like do it now anymore, but it's still kind of true. And overall a great fucking unit and one of the best carries that Wilders have, or the best carry that Wilders have. Iron. Iron is a really insane unit. His plus 30 is really huge, but for most users early on, you will end up using him for either Foreign Cheese or Lucretia Cheese, depending on your gazing target. That's why I had him at plus 20. If you run purely CC chain Iron, then plus 30 is required. And he also enjoys investment for stats mainly into his 9 out of 9 beyond his 3 out of 9. After Iron, you could arguably maybe have to go Zaurus if you can't find a Zaurus Merc, since Zaurus is important for Twisted Realm. But outside of Twisted Realm, you never actually end up using Zaurus too much, so yeah. Keep that in mind. If you can find a Zaurus Merc, Zaurus can move all the way down, since you don't actually need to Merc Rezul and just end up building him relatively early on nowadays. And then great support carries or supports in terms of Tassi and Laika find their place after the main carries are done. Then Pippa for Fallen Cheese and Portal Party. And yeah, really great units for Wilders. Let's check if there are other noteworthy Wilders. I mean, Gorbo for initial CC, but yeah, he's not as big as the ones that I mentioned in the list. Casp can be a good tank hero with investment, but yeah, she needs a lot of investment. Just to have another tank is kinda meh for PvE, but she's not too bad. She's not too bad. The Mauler with 9 out of 9 is a valid CC support. Yeah, I think that mentions most of the Wilders. And as for the elite copies, an early copy of Pippa can help quite a lot really early on, but you don't really need it. You can skip that one if you want to. And then Lawson for Lucretia or Fordon once you get those for the cheese comps. You only need him for the link in PvE anyway, so yeah, that one copy should be more than enough. Yeah, I guess I'm pretty happy about all of the other stuff. I mean, you don't really need 3 out of 9 for Zaurus, but Zaurus plus 30 is like the really required one. And Pippa you need plus 20 for Foreign Cheese usually, and then 3 out of 9 is for the Portal Party usage usually. And yeah, the rest is just minimal investment basically. I mean, you don't really need Iron necessarily at 3 out of 9 either. Raku, you wanted that one. Tassi, you kind of wanted that one. Like you wanted that one. Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. It always depends on what your box looks like and what you want to end up using the unit for, and if you want to swap the units around in teams. And obviously, more investment usually means them being more useful, but you don't want to misinvest if you can put this resource into other spots that help you more at the time. I hope that makes sense. Which is why I'm pretty hasty about giving the Iron an initial plus 30, since him being built second means there are other important plus 30s you can do. I didn't even include the Grand plus 30, even though that is quite good as well. Like the Rowan one is a really good plus 30, the Fallen one is a really good plus 30, Isold will need plus 30 if you end up building him, and yeah, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, let's go over to Graveborns. The next one is Diamond for Graveborns. Wait, let me take a sip. Okay. So Graveborns, yeah, I don't think you can argue too much with them not being the best factions in PvE. There's so much insane stuff going on in them, and they have so many insane units that like it's hard to make a case against Graveborns being the best. Daimon, one of the best early carries that have a really insane transition, unlike Chimera, and basically the same, if not stronger, once you get like into chapters above 20, I guess. Like Daimon stays strong towards the end. You will eventually need to plus 30 him for 34, 33 plus chapters to make him stay alive. But yeah, he's a really fucking insane, and he has to be the early Graveborn unit carry in my opinion. Like he's just the easiest and most reliable low deficit pusher that you can get early on. Then Farrell, a really insane support that doesn't need a whole lot of investment, is used in almost every multi-stage nowadays, and has been ever since, I think. Taking away energy, CCing, slowing down, it's just fucking insane. The underrated archer, like, yeah. He's the one that is used everywhere, but no one actually gives him a lot of credit, since he's never like the main carrier, but he's always there to enable them and yeah, get them to do their job. After that, I have Fallen. I mean, Fallen Cheese is just the easiest, most consistent comp that you can have, basically, and Fallen plus 30 is, in my opinion, the best investment in the fucking game for PvE. 3 out of 9 and 9 out of 9 are helpful investments. You don't always need it. Call 5 stars is really big for Fallen as well, and should also be the artifact that you first get to 5 stars. After that, you could do Eye, but Eye nowadays, I mean, usually gets replaced by a Shroud or Longbow on most units, so it doesn't matter too much. I think like Eye is the only artifact that has to go to 5 stars relatively early on. Grazul, really insane for Twisted Realm, AE and all of that stuff, while being insane for PvE as well. Not as insane as the previously mentioned ones, but with setup and him being able to ramp up utilizing Alna comps, he can be a real menace and yeah, carry a comp on his own basically. He needs to stay alive, he needs some time to ramp up. He can use Barricade on Daimon, he can be paired with Daimon. Overall a really great versatile unit, and isn't only needed for PvE but also one of the greatest Twisted Realm units. Needs a 9 out of 9 though, and plus 20 is like the cheap investment that you would want. You can get him his plus 30, it's meaningful as well, but yeah, plus 29 out of 9 is like the thing, and then plus 30 is a nice addition. Odin, that's just minimal investment. You can get him higher than that and he'll do an even better job. He's an insane CC, energy stealing, sub carrier, sometimes even carrier. Portal comp and petting zoo, how I called it. Alna Grazul Daimon. He can be used on all of those. He can even be used in some other comps from time to time as a substitute. He's really versatile and a fucking insane unit, but mainly for PvE. The only reason why he's so fucking low, even though he has so many great features, is that the other ones are so fucking important, and Grazul has the Twisted Realm one. If I would only rate PvE, I think Grazul would be lower, but Grazul I included for Twisted Realm as well relatively early on. Same for Saurus. And I would recommend putting both Chicken and Grazul on the furniture list as early as you can, since those are like basically the most impactful furnitures that I can think of right now. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Silas. Silas 3 out of 9 is mainly to support stuff like Isold, and plus 30 is like the go-to SI for him, needs some investment. It's a really nice support for ramping up units, and also for Alna Graveborn, besides the Isold usage, has his use in Twisted Realm as well. And really great support, healing support, yeah, healing buff support basically. That's all you really have to know at the moment about Silas, and yeah. His 9 out of 9 is a worthwhile investment to help ranged units get that buff as well. If you mainly end up using him for Isolt, you don't really need that one. And the new Graveborn support is a buff Isolt, since I feel like Isolt should move down in priority, since I only see him falling off as time goes on. So I don't want to advertise him too much. Currently, I think he still would have to be higher than Decider. I think that's her name. Wait, let me check if her name was Decider. I actually forgot again. I'm still building her. Yeah, Decider. Decider's usage right now seems to be in slow Alnar Graveborn sets, and really good against Floras with the invincibility basically, or yeah, the safety function on her ultimate. I don't remember the ability's name, but I can check it if you guys want me to. The Siren's Call, there we go. The Siren's Call, and then also the Oceanic Shield, I guess, plus Mist not being too bad in slow comps. The Siren offers a lot and helps against Flora. Overall, not really required, but most likely will move up as time goes on and more people end up building here and will have more places to be used in. I don't see her used in a lot of CC comps though, more so in slow invincibility comps. Yeah. Now let's move on to Isolt. We all know Isolt. Isolt is a ramping up unit. Isolt needs someone to die. Isolt will do the job. Isolt's 9 out of 9 will help a lot of consistency. Plus 30 and 3 out of 9 is like the minimal you would want to get to. Like I mentioned earlier, he uses similar units to Raku. And I feel like, I'm pretty sure he'll move down as time goes on. That's why I moved him down. I didn't include Hendrik, but you could include Hendrik and you could move Isolt up if you wanted to. And he's a decent unit. He's a relatively good unit. Don't underestimate him. It's just that the Graveborn faction is really stacked with amazing CC and insane supports, while also having some of the best carries in here. And I think Isolt just ends up being a step behind those. Okay, the one-offs for Graveborns are Nara for the single target CC, Kel for foreign cheeses to reposition enemies, and then Baden lastly. Usually just E+ for mini AE mainly, but yeah. He might be used in Abyssal Expedition as well at some point, but he usually enjoys also more useful investment. I don't know, you don't really need Baden, but yeah, I wanted to mention him for mini AE. He came in handy for Graveborn factions if your account is relatively new. Yep. If you got any questions, guys, let me know either on Twitch or in the comments down below. And thanks a lot for checking out the wishlist guide. See you next time. Bye, guys.